you're gonna have to decide what's worth your time and money and what's not. Or you could work on this thing all day, every day, for the rest of your freaking life. I promise you that right now. There is so many just little things wrong with this that I just don't care about. Today I'm gonna go over my like 10,000 mile breakdown. I've put almost 10,000 miles in this thing since I got it in June, and I'm gonna go through all the problems I've had, all the things I've had to spend money on, fuel, maintenance, things I still need to fix, just kind of give you a general idea of what it's like to operate one of these things for that amount of time from my perspective. And if you're wondering, this is a 1996 model year, was delivered in January of 95. So this was built in 1994. The original owner was Al Unser Jr., the IndyCar driver. When it was new, adjusted for inflation, it was $1 million. So what does a motor coach operate like when it was $1 million 26 years ago? It's older than I am. Conventional wisdom would tell you that it's terrible, that it's like a car, you know, because you don't want a 26-year-old Mercedes, you don't want a 26-year-old Rolls Royce, because they're disasters. I'm here to tell you right now that is not the case here. That thing has held together better than stuff that drives off the lot today, and I'm about to show you exactly why. You're probably wondering, first question, what kind of fuel mileage does it get? I don't know. Okay, I don't know. It has like a 300-gallon tank, all right, 300 gallons, and it has an analog gauge. It's a 94. I mean, it's a 96, but it's a 94. The gauge came from 1994, so that's how I'm gonna refer to stuff here. It was built with stuff made in 94. Yeah, it doesn't calculate that stuff. It's got a Detroit Series 60. Best thing ever made semi-truck engine. It doesn't have a whole lot of computer to it. It's the DDEC 3 system. It might have some type of calculation for it in the computer, but I don't have a monitor for that. All the gauges are completely analog. Like, it's the kind of gauge where if you turn, the fuel will slosh to one side and the gauge will go up. They're old school, like Cold War military looking gauges. They do their job though. I mean, I think they're accurate. I've heard that, like, you know, some of the water temp ones and whatever, they're not super accurate, so a slow relief system is better, which is something that would plug into the DDEC and be like an actual monitor for that. But I don't have that, so I have to look at this. But here's the fuel gauge here. I would guesstimate, just based off of when I tried, if I am going slow and it's flat, I mean slow is in like 60 miles an hour, 65 miles an hour, and it's flat and there's not a bad headwind, if my measurements are correct, I tried to fill this thing up, I filled it up to the brim before I left, and I drove to like middle of Arkansas or something, and I filled it up to the brim again. I was trying to go for max effort MPG, and when I calculated out, it said 7.8. I don't know if that's true or not. It could be. From what I've gathered just looking at semi-truck forums and stuff online, these Detroits get around 6, 7, something like that. Maybe 5 if you're really pulling it. But you got to think, this motor was designed to haul 80,000 pounds, and it's only working with 40 right now. It's not terrible. This is definitely not a slow machine. For how big it is, it moves really well. The tank is so big that it's really hard to fill it up the whole way the same way twice. And also because the generator takes into account too. It has its own like 50-gallon reserve tank or something in there. It's weird because I'll fill it up and the generator will run and it won't do anything. The generator will run for a long time, doesn't really make a dent, and then all of a sudden the gauge will just go rep. Like it just replenishes that fly tank for the generator, I think that's how it works. But the generator will use about 0.6 gallons an hour depending on the load, from what I've gathered in my own digging. So if it runs all day and fuel's about $2 a gallon, it'll cost you roughly $24 to run the generator for an entire day. I've calculated this because when I first got this thing, I didn't have a plug in the building, and I ran the generator, you're gonna laugh at me for this, I ran the generator for a month and a half, dry camping in this parking lot. And I changed the oil and stuff, but man, that thing is a stalwart. It did its job, but it made a dent in fuel. And there's another issue with the fuel tank that I will go about later when I talk about the things that I still need to fix. Now, when it comes to breakdowns, I have owned this thing since the middle of June and put almost 10,000 miles on it. And so far, it has left me on the side of the road one time. And that was because for a simple issue back here, I actually have a whole video about this being stranded on the side of the road. You should check that out if you haven't seen it yet. But spoiler alert, it ended up being a pin on the ECU. The wire, you know, just vibrating over time, just came off. It broke. It was the 12-volt signal wire to the ECU. So essentially my key power trigger for the computer broke off, and then the ECU just turned off because it didn't think the ignition was on. And that is down here. That's the DDEC 3 box. Connector that was an issue was that one down there. It was a pin in that connector. And while I'm in here, maintenance, I have changed the air compressor governor because I had numerous air leaks, and I just thought it'd be a good idea to do. As far as air leaks go, still am addressing, still need to address. But I had a big air leak when I first got this thing. Like big, so bad that I would pull into a truck stop to fuel up, I'd shut it off, and when I would come out, my trailer chains were already on the ground. Like this thing would sag in the rear fast. And I have videos fixing that too, but it ended up being a pretty simple, like some push lock air fittings. The plastic collars were leaking. Take note of that too. Compression fittings are 10 out of 10 the thing you want to use to replace that stuff with, just for that reason. And if you have to use a push lock, use the ones that are brass, not the plastic collar. I dealt with that. That made a big difference. Cost on that, I think 40 bucks maybe, from the various brass pieces and times I had to drive to the, like, you can get that stuff. I just drove to a random truck stop about 10 minutes from here to get that stuff. It's pretty easy to find if you go to like commercial truck places. And remember this too, DOT airline fittings are different than standard compression fittings. You're gonna wanna use the DOT ones. You probably don't have to, you can get away with using a regular one, but why would you not use the DOT one? That's what it's made for. It's designed differently for a reason. The one major area of maintenance that I've done on this is I replaced all of the airbags on the front. Did I have to? No. Did I have to? Yes. And what I mean by that is it was a safety concern. If you saw the airbags that came off of the front of this thing, you would have been like, bro, how did you make it back from South Carolina when you bought it? I don't know. They were quite sketchy. I replaced those. The bags are, man, I can't remember exactly. I'd have to look it up. I think they were like around 200 bucks, maybe 170 to 250, depending on what manufacturer you get. But I did all 4 front bags, and you change all the fittings on top. We'll say I got $1,000 in changing the front airbags on this thing. I did the work myself. It was not terrible. You can do it with basic hand tools pretty much, as long as you have like a really big wrench to get that, get those big old air fittings loose, because they're big fittings. You need big tools to work on this thing. And I also learned that you don't have to take off the front wheels to do it. I took off the one side of the front wheel to do the first side, and I realized I didn't need to, so I just did the second side. I just picked it up and went over there and went that way. But you're gonna need big jack stands, like the big 20-ton jack stands with the pin in them, to work on these things safely. Don't get under it without it being supported. Like when I jack mine up, I air it up the whole way, I put the stands under it, and then I air it down so it's on the jack stand. It's on the jack stand. It's not there for safety, it's on it all the time, just so it doesn't move at all, because that would freak me out. Now more about the expenses of this stuff. When it broke down on the side of the road and I had to get that fixed, that was 500 bucks for having Jeremy come out, diagnose it, go get the part, pay for the part, all that. That's not including the fuel pump that the other place made me buy that I didn't need. Go watch the video if you want to see that fiasco. 500 bucks into that disaster, and I got extra pins for the connectors, so I have that with me now. I got like $1,000 in the front air suspension. I still need to do the bags in the back. That's not a huge issue, but it's something I need to do. It needs new tires. I got a couple flat spots in the tag tires. The guy before me, I guess, flat spotted the front tires pretty bad once. I mean, obviously not on purpose. You don't flat spot a tire on purpose, but he got new ones for the front and moved those ones in the back, and they're pretty annoying. I never realized this until someone else drove me down the road in this while I worked on my computer. But when you're up front, you don't really notice it, but when you're back, like on the dyno working on stuff, it's like it's just not good. So I need to do that too. As far as I can tell, all these switches still work, you know, like fast idle. That's been good. Get your controls over here. The Jake brake has solenoids that are down. I haven't worried about fixing that yet, just because I don't think I need to. I will eventually though. Maybe I'll hit up old Jeremy and work through that with him. Yeah, it'll build up. You get an air compressor switch here. The curbside dump valve is disconnected. The previous owner pulled that fuse out because he didn't want someone to actually bump it and dump the poop all over the road. See the fuel gauge there? If I put $200 in it at this level right here, it would not even get me to half a tank, maybe half a tank. Because when we left Dallas to go to Bradenton, I put $200 in it, and when we got to Pensacola, which is about 10 hours from here, I forget how many miles, the fuel gauge was right about where it's at now. So $200 gets you about 10 hours on the highway. The only mod I've done to it is I straight piped it. I built a straight pipe exhaust for it, and then I accidentally went down a dirt road. It was really bumpy, and all the bumps made my bolts fall out, and my exhaust fell off. So now it's just a down pipe that basically points right at the ground because the tailpipe section came off, but it still sounds cool. I like it. Fast idle. I think it idles a little bit higher when it's colder outside. Just, you know, might be setting an ECU or something. That may have helped the fuel mileage, I don't know, because the muffler that was on there was huge. But I'll never know. If you're really that concerned about fuel mileage, this is not for you. I will tell you that right now. It's just not. Don't do it. Don't do it. If you're considering getting a large motor coach, high-end one, or just getting one at all, getting an older one of a former high price point is absolutely the way to go. They're built with more residential stuff. Like, this thing uses real like home kitchen appliances and fixtures, and not, you know, the cheap RV stuff. It's built densely, it's built well. Everything is serviceable, it's replaceable, especially with Newell. Everything that's on here, even if it's like an AC unit control board that's not, the manufacturer's not in business anymore, Newell has gone out of their way to have that reproduced by somebody else and kept in stock so they can always fix everything. Now, with that being said, you can get these for really good deals. However, there's going to be stuff wrong with them. That's just how they are. They are all like that. Every single one of them. It doesn't matter if it's 20 years old or 10 years old or 25 years old. They're all going to have stuff wrong with them. And if that's something that you can't handle, don't buy one, because you're going to have to decide what's worth your time and money and what's not. Or you could work on this thing all day, every day, for the rest of your freaking life. I promise you that right now. There is so many just little things wrong with this that I just don't care about. Like, for one, the step motor. It just broke one day. I got another one. I put it in, and it's like not extending the whole way. I haven't bothered to fix it because, you know why? I can just step in. It's not a big deal to me. My front AC unit doesn't blow cold. The rear AC unit doesn't blow cold, but the center one and the roof one do. And even when it's 105 degrees outside, those things do just fine in here. So I haven't bothered to fix them yet. It's not worth my time. Not right now anyways. When I got this thing, I left the guy's house with the diesel portion of the Aqua Hot on. Well, I turned that off. It's never turned back on. It just doesn't work anymore. I don't know why. So I just used the electric half of it. That's something I need to fix, and probably something I won't fix until I need to take a shower and the electric one doesn't work anymore and I don't have hot water. Then I'll have to fix it. It's kind of one of those things. It's this little stuff. I got air leaks on the supply side I got to fix, so I don't run my 110 air compressor all the time, because the only thing that operates are the pocket doors and the toilet. Well, I don't use the toilet because if I use the toilet, then I have to dump the tank, and I'll just go inside and use the toilet. That's a non-factor, and I don't really need to open the pocket doors that much, so I just don't open it. Changing the oil in the generator is not a big deal. It uses a regular filter that you can get at any parts store. Just occurred to me I should have filmed that, but that does slide out with air power through these valves here. You pull that to release the latch, and then you push the button, and it goes psh. And something cool about it is if you turn the engine on, this puts itself back in automatically so you don't drive away with it like that. But you got the filter right here, the drain plug is down there. It's nice and easy. You got the hour meter back there. This generator has 1996 hours on it. It had 350 or something when I got this thing, because it had a new generator, which is a good perk of that, because the generator is an important component. When it comes to other quirks this thing has, One big one is the fuel tank leaks. That didn't happen when I first got it. It started afterwards. This magical thing happened where one time I came back from a trip and the tank was like low. I normally don't do that. I would normally, if it got to half a tank, I'd stop and fill it back up again just because I like to always have it full. Well, that time I didn't, just because I didn't want to spend the money, and it just stopped leaking. How about that? And I found out if I don't fill it up past half a tank, it does not leak. So guess what I do now? I just don't fill it up past half a tank, and that's fine, because like I said before, half a tank get me from Dallas to the Florida Panhandle. That's plenty between stops. Like, I gotta stop and pee way sooner than that. The only con to not having the full tank capacity without it leaking is if there's like cheap diesel here in Texas, I could fill it the whole way up and probably drive all the way to Bradenton without filling up again, that's cool. So I do want to fix that. I will fill it up the whole way. If I don't care if I drip on stuff when I get where I'm going. And why are you probably asking, why does he fix all this stuff? You're an idiot. Well, you know what? You don't know what I do. If you're an RV person and you're watching this right now and you're not familiar with my channel, you don't know what I do. You don't know what my priorities are. My priorities are my racing stuff. That is what puts diesel in the tank of this thing. So the little things that are wrong with this, I could nitpick all day. But on my priority list of what produces a return, I can live without my toilet working. I can live without steps. That stuff is not important to me. It's not as important as getting down the road and having a place to put my head. As far as oil changes on the motor, maintenance-wise, I've done one of those so far. It was easy, it was not a big deal. It's a regular Detroit 60, holds 10 gallons of oil. You can get the filters at any commercial truck place. The biggest expenses that I will incur in the following undefined period of time in the relative short-termness of the future is tires. I don't want to keep using those ling-long ding-dong tires on the front, and I don't want to have the flat spotted tires on the back anymore. So I would like to get new tires for this thing because it'll drive better. That's pretty expensive, because a good tire is, you know, $400, $500, $600 depending what tire you get, and you know, there's a good bit of tires on here. So there's that, and redoing all the airbags in the back. I want to have all new bags in this thing for sure. I just started with the fronts because that's most important, because if you bust a front airbag, you go off the road. So that's not good. You could die. That's why I did that when I did it. The rear, if the rear won't pick up, the back tire will drag on the fender and you're basically inoperable, which is some weird quirk about Newells. That's just a Newell thing. Might be like that on some stuff. I don't know why they made that possible, but it's just how it is. Actually, when I went and looked at Dale Earnhardt's old one, because I was gonna buy that one, like swear, I went to buy that. It would not air up correctly, and it was dragging the back tire on the fender, so we couldn't even drive it. That's what happened with that. So I need to do bags in the back, tires, for mechanical stuff. I need to fix the turn signals, because whenever the headlights are on, the flasher doesn't work. I have to like manually click the stock, which is weird. It's just like an old school GM column. Somebody told me that has to do with the bulb socket in the headlights, because it uses like old Ford headlights. So I'm gonna get airbags, tires, headlights, like new headlights with LEDs in them. I'm gonna do LED taillights. Taillights aren't really a big deal, but I'd like to do them. I need to fix the leaky fuel tank. I need to fix my AC. I need to fix the diesel portion of the AquaHot. I need to fix the air leaks on the supply side of the air system, which is different from the brakes. The brakes leak a little bit, but not very much. A little bit. And I think that it probably bleeds out through the supply side. There is a check valve in there that sometimes goes bad between the two systems. So if I change that, I should be able to isolate that problem. But the supply side holding air would be nice, because then, you know, it goes down the road better if you're holding air. That was a problem I had before with those air leaks, is it was so saggy in the back that the compressor on the engine was basically running all the time to keep up with it. One, it was making the feed line really hot and starting to melt wires it was laying against. And two, it drove funny because the rear was sagging and it threw my wheel off. And my wheel's still off a little bit. I think that is probably to do with some of the leaks back here. I'm not positive, but I'm not gonna pay to get an alignment until I fix all of the chassis air leaks, so this thing can sit on an alignment rack and hold air. If it's not accurate when they put it on the rack, you're not gonna get a good alignment. So I'm not gonna do that until I fix that. Now, this is not really a problem, but it's just something that annoys me because I'm 6'5". I don't like where the pedal is in relation to my foot. And I think part of that problem is because this air seat is disconnected. I don't know why, but there's the airline down here that went to the seat just has a T on it, and I don't know why it's like that. I'd imagine the seat itself is probably broken, so whoever it might have been just capped that off and just let it ride. Well, that makes my driving position kind of weird. Like, you can see my foot is just bent awkwardly like this, and it kind of like messes with my back after a while. I want to dig in and modify the seating position to be more like a truck, where I sit back farther with the steering wheel more like this and the pedals in front of me. So I can move this pedal pretty easily. It's just screwed into the floor. I can move it forward, I can knock this out, move that back, and I could cut and redo this brake arm here to just scoot everything. Instead of being here, it would be out here, and that would make worlds of difference. Freaking Cole came in here because he thought I was honking at him to come in here.
I just got here. I was coming to say bye to Adrian because that fool was leaving.
Well, I guess this can be a useful part of the video. Now that you've been in this thing, you've never experienced one of these before, what are your thoughts about, you know, going down the road in it and operating out of it?
I'm kind of biased because I grew up spending a lot of time in toter homes and big RVs and stuff, so without this thing having slides, I was really surprised at how much space it actually had. The feel inside is not what you would expect from a 90s. It doesn't feel like you're in anything outdated, and you know, it's just, it's a nice ride.
There you have it, unbiased third party. That's Cole Reynolds. If you've never seen any of my other videos, you might not know who he is, but he's been in a lot of them. I'm sure there's some stuff I overlooked. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I wish I could give you more specific answers about fuel mileage and stuff, but I just can't. That does not exist. And I'll reiterate this again. If you are that concerned about fuel mileage, don't buy one of these. Stop watching these videos. Anybody who also has one will agree with me on that. And with that being said, yeah, make sure you let me know if you have any other questions. Hit that subscribe button. You can go watch all the other videos tracing down air leaks in this thing, building the straight pipe, when I got stranded on the side of the road and figuring that out, tours from the Newell factory, all that stuff. So we'll see you over there.